control. Gravity is all that I know. She's over me. She's over me. She comes me with her hypnotic dance. She holds me here with only a glance. She's over me. She's over me. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, welcome to the Paranormal Portal. I'm your host, Brent Thomas. You are stuck with me for about an hour, so an hour full of Paranormal Portal fun. These are our night terrors, so it's our shorter version Paranormal Portal, as the Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday shows are 2 hours. And so these night terrors are about an hour. So if you can stick with me for that long, that'd be really groovy. And if you stick all the way through the show, at the tail end of the show, I will, let's see. If you stick to the tail end of the show, I will be unveiling a couple of the projects that I've been working on, a couple of things. They're just to enhance the show and for show assets for the YouTube live streams and such, or, maybe for pre-recorded shows that may be forthcoming in the very near future, which is always a possibility. So, without saying too much, but that's something we're working on. And so I'm going to just unveil them at the end of the show tonight so you can get an idea of things that I've been doing in the last week. A couple of the things anyway. So that'll be at the tail end of the show, before the show is closed, before the credits at the very end. So stick around to the end and you can watch that and check it out and tell me what you guys think. I think it's pretty cool, but I'm obviously pretty biased. So anyway, hello everybody that's coming into the chat, and to all of you that might be out there listening but are not chatting. Thank you guys for joining us, whatever you're doing here in the Paranormal Portal channel on YouTube. It's always a pleasure to see you guys, and it's fun. It's just nice to be back. Annie's lurking, she says. It's okay to lurk, Annie. There's no problem. You're welcome to lurk all you like. We encourage lurkers. Thanks, Lewis. I was back last night as well, in case you missed it, but I was here. Hi, Renee. I was here, and we had a good show last night, and it was really heartwarming to come back and see everybody, was missing. I mean, it was just a week. That's really, in terms of the scope of life, that's just a blink, but it felt like it took forever, and it felt like I was away for a really long time. But I am back now and back in the saddle. So I hope you guys are ready, because it's time for bed. Well, good to see you too, Taco. I'm glad we can help you schedule your evenings more efficiently. That's always awesome. But anyway, as usual, I've got a bunch of stories pulled up for you guys. And if you want to be on the show to share something paranormal of your very own, please feel free to call in. The number to the show is 720-923-0500. 720-923-0500. 0500. So if you forget that, it's right up there. See it? Little itty bitty numbers. It's kind of like the fine print. And just below that, of course, is the legal agreement that we've entered into. You'll have to zoom way in to see that. No, just kidding. There's no legalese. I don't know, maybe there should be, but there should be some kind of disclaimer. Like, if you were expecting actual entertainment, you may be just disappointed. Nah, I'll do my best to keep you entertained, because that's what I do. But where was I? I have stories saved and pulled up for you guys. So let's get into those. And hopefully you will be thoroughly entertained if I'm doing my job. And if I'm not doing my job, well, just remember, you get what you pay for. All right, the first one tonight is coming out of Minnesota. And that's, of course, my old place. Portal Hug Monster. Hey, Ethan. Thanks for the hugs. We appreciate your generous support. Oh, that's sweet, Julia. Good job. Good job putting out the links. I haven't seen Duke. Oh, there's Duke. I missed you last night, Duke. But unless you were here and had to leave, I don't know. I looked in a few times throughout the show last night and didn't see you. But it's good to see you. And hello, Moog. Good to see you too, brother. We have the greatest mods in the modverse of YouTube. These guys do a great job. And Moog, you did great last night. I was checking it out, and nice work. So anyway, let's see what we got going on here. This is Minnesota. And actually, the story's about an area that was pretty close to my hometown. So it says, I lived in Faribault, Minnesota. It's a small town where everyone knows everyone. Well, there's an old insane asylum that is now run down. It's boarded up and has been there for years. Teenagers like to go in there and mess around and do drugs and stuff, but, well, I've been in that place and it is creepy. As I was walking through the tunnel and it leads to the old asylum, well, I was walking through there and as I heard screaming, it seemed like it was really far away, but it echoed so far. Yeah, that'd be horrible. That would just be a horrible sound to hear. If you're in an old abandoned building and suddenly you hear screaming, that's not even right. I got to the end of the tunnel, and as I walked to the asylum, I was with friends, and we got to the end. Though we heard screams, we were thinking it was just the wind, maybe. So we started to walk to the asylum, and we saw a figure standing at the end of the tunnel. And we looked at it for like 2 seconds. After that, it just disappeared. So we continued on and went through a hole in the front door. There's a hole. Nice. Forget the door. We just installed a hole for you guys. And we all got inside and looked around, and we were on the main floor. And we saw old instruments that were used for the insane years ago. And as we walked around, we entered a room that a guy had died in. There was an old newspaper sitting on the ground of the room saying that he was here because of schizophrenia. I don't know, this sounds a little convenient. I mean, it's an abandoned asylum. They're in a room that they know somebody died in, and on the room floor of this abandoned asylum is a newspaper that has an article about him being there because he's schizophrenic. That sounds, and I can't say this isn't factual. This is a story I found, but it is represented as real. But I got to say that so far the logic isn't quite tracking for me. But then again, I might be missing something. So it says he had murdered his family and was then placed in the asylum, and he was tortured with tools, well, like electric chairs and things like that. He died in 1946. The place was condemned in 1984. We walked towards the room and we started to hear talking and wondering what it was. Well, my friend got attacked and then had disappeared. All right. Yeah, it's going way deep into the bizarre. So we kept walking and tried to find him. So anyways, we walked into a room for children and there were 20 beds. We walked in there and was looking for him and found nothing. And we heard a noise in the far corner of one of the beds and someone appeared there. It was a child that was tortured while living there. So we bolted out the door. As we ran outside, we ran into our friend and asked him where he was, but he said he couldn't remember. But then after we walked through that tunnel, I had a strange figure following me as I was walking, but after I walked out of the tunnel, it disappeared. Still never went back to that place. No, that's the end of the story, and I don't know. It's, some people, and this isn't a dig, this isn't me like trashing somebody, because I mean, if they're sharing something that happened, that's very profound, and it's a very brave thing to do. I will say, though, that this story seems disjointed anyway, like it's not tracking very well, and some people just aren't storytellers. They're just not writers, and so they do the best they can, and so maybe that's what's going on here. But I don't know, there's some things that just seem a little too convenient, and there's other things that just seem hard to believe. So, but take it as you will. I have no idea if this person is being truthful or honest or not. I don't know. But I'm bringing it to you because it is about a haunted place. The next one I got is coming from a state of Missouri, or Missouri. And it's has to do with miscellaneous things. So I don't know what the phenomena is for sure. It's ghostly, but I don't know which types of experiences they had. So it says 4 years ago, there was a boy at our school named Remy. Remy liked fire. Well, long story short, he was expelled from the school for trying to set the fire to the gym. A lot of people like to tease Remy, and you would have described him as one of the nerds or the freaks. And I stood up for Remy a lot, even though I probably shouldn't have. When he told me about his plan to set fire to the teacher's lounge, I had to back out. He yelled at me and called me a traitor, and I didn't think that he would go through with it until one day we had an unscheduled fire evacuation, and we heard the fire trucks zoom down the street, and then we realized it really wasn't a drill. I saw Remy walk out of the back gym exit where the fire was reported to have started, and a couple of football players tackled him as soon as they saw him. It was during their football practice, and obviously one of the football players saw him do it. It was not very surprising, and he was the only one in the whole school that would have pulled off something like that. Anyway, they tackled him to the ground and took him to the principal. He cleaned out his locker and moved to another school, and 2 years later, he died. He was in a house fire, which is not very surprising. He got out safely, but died 2 days after. After about a month or two, I woke up in the middle of the night to the smell of smoke. I ignored it because my mother smokes, and sometimes she will get up early to smoke. And a couple of days after that, I awoke to a searing pain on my arm. I ignored it and got back to sleep. And at school the next day, my friends asked me what happened to my arms. And sure enough, there were burn marks up and down my arms. Can someone please tell me what they think happened? I need help with this. It's been going on for a while. I don't know. I don't know. That's strange. Is it possible for a spirit to burn somebody? Maybe. I mean, they can scratch people, right? So we've hear that all the time. I don't know. Can they induce that to people? It depends on what you believe, and you hear it all the time. Oh, ghosts can't hurt people. Ghosts cannot hurt people, and I would disagree, because I've heard many stories of people getting thrown up against walls, choked, held down in their beds. They get scratched. They get terrorized, people waking up with bruises and hand marks all over their bodies. And so it seems like maybe ghosts can hurt people to me. And I think that it's a dangerous assumption to think that they can't. And it's a false sense of security. But I think that there are ways to protect yourself. And those can be very significant, and they can be religious in nature. But there's different ways of protecting yourselves. But I don't know. It's hard to say. It's kind of controversial. But I'm just putting it out there, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know. I didn't write these things, so I just find them. So thank you guys for putting out the links and stuff. Cool. Let's see. Let's get to the next one. The next one, of course, is from Wisconsin, just across the river from Minnesota. In June of 2004, my father was diagnosed with cancer. After his surgery, they gave him 3 months to live, and my husband went through and made a big production of asking for my father's permission and talking to my family and making them part of his proposal, which my dad missed completely because he was watching television. We decided to do things quickly because I wanted my dad to be able to walk me down the aisle. We got married in December, and my father made it until May before things got really bad. One day I called my mom before heading off to work. I worked 30 to 40 minutes away from where we lived, and just to make sure it was okay. And I go to work that day, and I just had a feeling that something wasn't right. I got a call later that day from my mom saying that she didn't think it was going to be long now and that I should come home. Well, by the time I got to my parents' home, he was actually gone. It turns out he passed away 10 minutes after I spoke to her. I kind of got to say goodbye as they prepared to take him away, but it was never a complete closure for me. At the time of his passing, my husband was in the process of trying to fix my father's truck. It was one of his most prized possessions, but it still wasn't running. A day after the memorial, I was sitting in the living room and my husband was sitting on the other couch across from me. Our house makes some very distinct noises when people walk around in it. And well, that night we heard someone walk down the hall towards us and then turn into the kitchen. We turned to look, waiting to see someone walk out, but of course, no one ever did. My husband looked over at me and said, "Well, honey, your dad came to say goodbye." And at that point, I started to cry, and we never heard those noises again. That's really cool, and it really, really resonates with me because of course, if you listen to our podcasts, just on Fridays, Don and I released the recording of when we had my mom on the portal here, and we talked about a lot of the activity that we believe my father was doing. And if you're not familiar with that, check out our Fridays podcast, and you can find it on Pandora, Spotify, iHeart, iTunes, and as well as go to facebook.com/Paranormal Portal Radio, and you can watch a video that my mom recorded of her TV, of my dad's old TV. He had passed away, and his old TV turned on, and it happened to go on the internet, go to smart TV mode. It launched YouTube. It somehow found my channel, the Paranormal Portal channel on YouTube, and managed to queue up and play the episode that I had just streamed live hours earlier, and I was talking about the weird things going on at my parents' house. So my dad's TV turned on, went on the internet, and launched YouTube, went to my channel, and queued up and played the video I had just recorded the night before of me talking about the things going on in that house. So it's so many layers deep of this incredibly profound example of, a message, a demonstration of my dad saying, "I'm still here. I'm still with you." And I thought, wow, how powerful is that? Now, the funny thing also is this is a man that in his lifetime, for the life of him, he couldn't operate a remote control. And that TV had never been online in smart TV mode in the years he owned it. He never knew how to do that. So apparently he's still working that kind of stuff out and has managed to figure out remotes and how to control the TV. So, excuse me, but a very cool experience. If you're not familiar with it, my mom only caught the last part of that exchange, or that last part of that video that was playing. But I was still talking about some of the activity that she had told me about and that I experienced. It was really incredible. Just an incredible series of events that had happened. And I don't know, it was really profound for me. So I can totally relate to this. It's something I've experienced myself. Not so much the sounds of the walking around. I think that's kind of creepy personally, but, I mean, for them, it was a beautiful experience, but, it's just this ambiguous walking around in your house. Well, the first thing I'm thinking is somebody broke in. I would just always go to that first because you gotta be careful. There's a lot of nut jobs in the world, but so I'm glad that my dad never chose to do that one because that's a little disturbing. So let's move on to the next one, and this is coming out of Georgia. Georgia is the place. Good to see everybody coming in. Thank you, guys. All of you who are coming in to check out the show. I appreciate it a bunch. So let's go to Georgia and see what's going on there. And it says, I start off by saying, I do believe in the spirit world, but now it seems all too real for me. I'm 29, and for the last year or so, more so than often, while I'm pregnant, I experience the out-of-body experience events, mostly happening in the early hours when my other children go to school. November 24th, 2008, my children leave to go to school, and I tend to fall asleep once they're gone, and that's when it starts. I'm mostly sleeping on my back when it happens, and it's as if someone is there, but I can't really see them. but I can hear laughing and giant footsteps. Sometimes they are giant feet steps, but lately it's been more like running. I'm mostly scared, but I would then try to wake up, and it doesn't feel like someone is holding me down. It just feels like a spirit or something. But the night before it was kind of chilly, so I decided to sleep in the family room with my children, and my husband joined as well. So then night went on and everyone falls asleep, and at around about maybe 2 or 3 a.m., I'm awakened by a hand as if someone is saying, "Wake up, your lights just flickered." Now, when I went to sleep, all the lights were on, but as I was awoken, half the house was shut off in the family area except for the television. So I could only remember someone gently squeezing my arm, and I was startled and in panic mode. Things happen for a reason, but I'm still puzzled about why this is happening to me. I don't know. If you think about it, though, of course, being pregnant has to be one of the most profound spiritual experiences. In that, and I don't know what you believe, and it's not up to me to tell you what you believe, and I think maybe it depends, because we don't know when does the spirit actually occupy the form, and this isn't a debate about ethics or anything like that, so don't worry, but it's just like, when does the spirit enter the little body in the mother's womb? Does it enter at birth? Does it enter at conception? Does it enter somewhere in between there? And I think that that's such a profound experience. So maybe if the spirit enters the unborn child at some point during that pregnancy, could it, or does it perhaps magnify psychic awareness and ability, because there are now two spirits occupying the same space, the two souls occupying that same space? So would that potentially act as an amplifier? Because I think pregnant women experience a hell of a lot. I mean, having been a father a few times now, and be experiencing that whole pregnancy and what that does, and not firsthand, of course. I can only try to understand as what I'm watching, but to see the incredible ramifications to the woman's body, it's just, there's some really profound things going on there, and I just can't imagine what that would feel like. And my hats are off to all you ladies out there who have brought children into the world, because my God, that's just Herculean. That's a Herculean task. And what does that do? What does that mean? So I imagine there's spiritual adjustments that happen as well as physical, because the body is the reflection of our soul, I think, to a degree. So when those changes happening to our body, and another soul is possibly present, if that soul should enter during that time, what are the ramifications? And I think they would just be profound. I don't pretend to know, and it's just me sitting here out loud. I've never thought about this before, but just in my reaction to this story, that's what's jumping to my mind, is like, what does go on? How could that affect the mother on a very spiritual level, as far as awareness, as far as things being out of whack for them, maybe, I know that the body certainly goes into a whole period of out of whack, and the whole morning sickness thing has got to suck. Oh, but it's amazing. It's amazing to consider. So the baby can communicate with the mother, Pamela Becker says. That's really cool. And I think you're right. I think that I really agree with that, Pamela. That's pretty amazing. That's amazing thought. Huh. But I think it's really something that doesn't get looked at too much. Of course, there's pregnant people all the time. It's like an everyday occurrence. But how profound is that? When a woman is pregnant, her brain shrinks. Wow, Tracy. Okay. Got it. That's got to be double tough. Now that's just a physical brain, right? That's not like IQ stuff going on here, right? Does the intelligence shrinks too? I'm just kidding. I'm just being a jerk. I'll get done with my show, and all of a sudden the shoe will come. I'm just joking. That is deep, Brent. Kathy says, consider the possibilities. Mother's intuition may be from shared heartbeats and oxygen. Good point. Yeah, absolutely. That's incredible. Anybody else says, my youngest told me her name, Pamela says. Wow, that's really deep. That's incredibly profound. Huh. Okay, very cool. Just says she must be pregnant. Could be. I don't know what's going on there, but it's hard to say. When men get around women, their brains shrink a lot more. Oh, nice, Mikhail. Mikhail goes right. Oh no, that was 999 plus said that. Okay. Yeah, I don't know if everybody has kids, but I think a lot of us are probably in the family way one way or another. But yeah, I think it's just something to consider, How does that affect everything, and how does it change everything for the mother? And what a profound, and does that psychic impression or that psychic event of having another soul present and within the soul of the person, I assume that the physical reflects the spiritual or the spiritual reflects the physical. I mean, does that open up things psychically for a woman that after she has, and not that you should have children in order to be more psychically aware, but I would imagine it has to leave some kind of change in that awareness for the mother. I know that hormonally, my God, things are just like a freaking circus act in there. It's like, wow. Huh. So Taco says, what if the soul knows when a woman will be prego and lets the body grow around it? That's a good point. I mean, if it's there at conception, for sure. At that moment of conception, that's very possible. Good point, brother. I don't know. And it's all just speculation, of course. But I think this is something I've never heard really discussed before. So yeah, it's pretty powerful. Huh. All right. Well, thank you guys for your contributions to that discussion. I think that's really cool. Let's go to the next. And of course, the phone lines are open. If anybody wants to weigh in on that, please feel free. We'll always take calls on the portal. Well, generally I do. I mean, if I don't see them, then that's a whole nother issue. But I just think it's interesting. Ray says, I'm blowed by this conversation. It's perfect. Deep stoner thoughts. I don't know if Ray's talking about the conversation in the chat room or the conversation that I'm having. I'm not sure. Because sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, if you're new to the show, there's two very different discussions going on. It's the one I'm having and the one they're having in the chat. So it depends on what you're here for. And that's fine. I mean, I'm just here, just reading stuff. So, all right, let's go to Hawaii. It says, I've been listening to the rumors for years. The story never seemed to waver from the urban legend. One day I decided to investigate. And it's called The Gate to Nowhere. It was easy to find, but it took a few visits before I understood. This is a portal to and from otherworldly places. The gate is locked, but nothing separates you from the wide expanse of the open field. I couldn't believe how eerily beautiful it is. To my right, the airport and harbor are hidden around a rocky point, and to my left, across a short road, sits the pillars and the locked metal gate. It stands out by the strangeness of the locale. A one-lane road goes up and down to the dead end a quarter mile away. The ocean encircles the area on three sides. It shouldn't be there. It is a place that makes you dizzy. After many, many visits, I gathered up some courage and crossed out and into the open field. The energy will leave you feeling lightheaded. The air is heavy with a kind of electrical charge, and the grassy field is alive with paranormal activity. The first time I went to the field, a young man appeared. Of course, he didn't stay long. And before I could say, I see you, he disappeared. I can still see the surprise in his eyes, at least I think they were eyes. He stood on the middle portion of the field, and we were talking an illogical distance away, and I couldn't tell how close or far away he stood, and it felt like the distance just kept changing. When I enter the area, the hair stands up on my arms and my jaw feels like it's tightening up. The power here is just amazing. It's a good and a bad spiritual place. Many years ago, there stood a farm and then a ranch, and the farm was blown down during a hurricane, rebuilt, and then blown down again. The same thing happened to the ranch house, and some think that it's just sacred land, and I kind of feel that way too. In the past 6 months, I've seen dozens of souls. They appear on a regular basis, all times of the day, from children to the elderly, and I've felt the dark ones as well. They seem to stay away from me. To date, as I write this, I still feel safe. I haven't been there at night, but I'll try to muster the courage to go one evening. I took some daytime photos, but still haven't posted them on my website yet. I hope to do so tomorrow. Just gazing at the photos, you can feel the power of that place. I'm researching the area for some answers, and it is probably the most confusing place I have ever had the privilege to visit. I feel that I am being called, and there are souls who are trapped there. Of this, I am sure. I don't feel as though I'm in danger, but you never know. The paranormal is uncharted territory, but I can't deny the pull. I'll write a part 2 when I have more answers. Blessings. And that was written by someone named Ghost Seer. That's pretty cool. Let me see if there is a part 2. No, it doesn't look like it. Doesn't look like they ever got around to that. What was it called? Hey, Taco. Thank you, brother. Woohoo. That's awesome, man. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. That helps a whole ton. Every little bit helps, guys. These shows are a lot of fun to do, and I wouldn't quit doing it no matter what. But it sure helps. It is kind of an expensive endeavor because there are costs associated with having to have a stable stream and good equipment enough to stream and upkeep and et cetera, et cetera. So I appreciate that. And remember to stick around to the end of the show. I'm going to be showcasing a brand new song and a new video element I put together for the show. So that'll be at the tail end of the show. So make sure you don't leave early. Unless you don't care, then do whatever you want to do. But if you're interested, stick around. I'd like to hear your guys' impression of the work that I did. And maybe you'll like it, maybe you'll hate it. But either way, I got to know. So no, there is no part 2 that I can find for this story. Unfortunately, I really would like to see a part 2. That would be really awesome. No, nothing. I'm just going through the list of other ones that this person has written. They did write another one. Well, let's go to this one. I'm going to keep that one open, though, because I think we'll go back and read some of the other submissions by that person because I like the way they write, and I agree that, those kind of places. There are sacred places, ladies and gentlemen. All of the First Nations, all of the tribal cultures, all of the shamanic traditions, to even more established religions and more worldly religions, they have a recognition of sacred places, and there's a reason those places are considered sacred. And generally, they could be convergences of ley lines. They could be other reasons that they are so spiritually charged. But those places were revered or feared for a reason. These people had an awareness of something that we probably don't have as much today, at least not most of us. But I think everybody has experienced that feeling. Oh, thank you, Taco. I appreciate it. That's really awesome, brother. It means the world. Thank you so much. But everybody's had that experience when you go someplace. Sometimes you'll go to a good place. Like if you ever had a really cool, these really cool people, and every time you go to their house, you just feel like you're home, like you somehow belong there. And that's a reflection of the energy of the house, of the energy that the people that live there have given it. We go to some place, you'll just walk into a clearing somewhere, and it's just like as soon as you step foot in there, it'll feel sometimes amazing. You go to some places that are really positively charged, and you just walk in, it's like, you just get that gasping look. And it's not always because of just the natural beauty. It's sometimes just the way it feels. You just know it on a real root level. And then we've all experienced those times when you walk into some place where you don't want to be. There's a real darkness about it. There's a real heaviness, and there's a real terror just seem to be built into the very walls, or the very stones and soil beneath your feet, if it's not a man-made place. And those are highly energetic places. And so our forebears and our ancestors knew these places existed, and that's why there's dolmens and sacred structures that were put up on those places to pay homage to those spirits, and to respect them, and live in harmony among them. But they knew enough to stay away too. I think nowadays we probably don't know enough anymore, but we're willing to just run into everywhere just to try to find it. And I respect that spirit though too. I think that in order to push this forward, we've got to go into the places that we really probably wouldn't otherwise choose to. And maybe in there we'll find answers. Maybe in there we'll see some phenomena happen that'll help us understand this more, or we'll be able to test equipment, or something like that. So sometimes you got to push it. We appreciate your generous support. Thank you, Julia. I appreciate it. Let's see. So yeah, I think that's pretty powerful. So this one is coming from Florida. Hold on, I got a cough. 7 months ago, I've been working for this hotel called Hawthorne Suites, and it's located next to SeaWorld in Westwood Boulevard. And ever since I've been here, I never thought this place will be haunted. I thought this was a normal place. Well, 3 months ago, the old company from Hyatt sold the hotel to some Hindu family, and there was something really strange in here. But before they sold the hotel, but when I was working in the front desk, suddenly I went to the back office, and like about 15 minutes or less, I saw my coworker was laughing nonstop, and she told me, "Can you believe the lady from room 413 or 410 saw a ghost earlier this evening?" She even checked out. She told me that when she woke up at 3 a.m., she was in the bathroom washing her face, and she saw some guy behind her. When she looked back, there was nothing. I said, "For real? That's strange." Well, finally the hotel was sold, and I started experiencing something strange. I worked third shift, so I was tired, and I went to sleep in a room, so I started to think about the situation of that lady. When I got to sleep while watching TV, my body paralyzes, and I had the control in my hand. Something grabbed me from the wrist. I got scared, and mentally praying, I said, "In the name of Jesus, get out, whatever you are." So I let go of my hand, but the control was not in my hand anymore. It was on the table near me. So after that, my coworker brought a church convention of guys. Only when I started speaking about this to some young kids, and some of them told me he was sleeping and felt a hand strangle him. Everybody woke up, but they thought he was just having a bad dream. After this, I asked the former boss, who told me way back, some old guy died in the parking lot a few years back before he was the GM. And I asked myself, is this him or the Hindu family that has statues in their temples? Can somebody tell me? My Christian friend told me these statues attract demons, and others told me I'm crazy. My brother told me to investigate the past of the hotel and the family. They bring bad things to the hotel, and I believe it. I've been dealing with customers that were drug dealers. A lot of break-in has occurred in the parking lot. And a guy was hitting his girlfriend, and my buddy got drunk and wanted to kill the girls in the kitchen. And I went to the kitchen, and his eyes gave me the chills. Well, here's the thing. Hindu statues don't bring demons. I know that there's... Well, I can't say that... I don't believe they do. And I will never advocate that. I will never advocate beating up on another religion. And by the way, I got a pet peeve. I saw comments on a video that we did, or actually a podcast. Hold on. A podcast that we did where somebody was going off because I was hemming and hawing and not. I was like basically avoiding in their words. This is their words. I was avoiding the Christianity, and that I need to embrace Jesus and all of this stuff, and I appreciate that, and I love all religions. I really do. But don't preach to me about what I need to believe or not to believe. If you believe something, that's wonderful. And I will absolutely advocate for you to believe that. And I hope you find love and peace and kindness in your heart. I hope it brings you joy and makes you feel safe and loved. I mean, that's wonderful. But don't ever pretend to preach to me about my religion or my beliefs. You don't know anything about me, and you have no place doing that in case that person happens to be watching. I have my own personal beliefs. I've come to these beliefs throughout the course of my entire lifetime, and they serve me well. And if that doesn't jive with yours, I don't care. Just so you know, I don't care. I hope you find some love in your heart and you find peace. But if you're going on message boards and blasting someone else for their belief because it's not what you believe, you got a real problem with your belief at that point. You know, it's not about slamming people for what they believe or don't believe, or if they don't say what you think they should say. If that's what your religion is doing to you, then you need to really examine your religion. I don't do this much, but that really stuck in my jaw. I was like, that's not fair. That's not nice. You don't know me as a person. You don't know who I am. And you have no business telling me whether my beliefs are valid or invalid or if I'm doing something wrong or right. You can share with me your beliefs. I'm happy to listen. But don't ever accuse me of anything or accuse me of not embracing one thing or denying another. Again, your religion is your path. My religion is my path. And I am a very spiritual person. But I don't come on this show and praise one religion and bash others just because that's what you think I need to do. You need to find yourself another show. So that's my soapbox, ladies and gentlemen. That's all I got to say. But, just my opinions, mind you. But I'm pretty adamant about that. I don't think it's good to attack people because you believe something or don't believe. If I don't believe something, then I'm doing something wrong. You have no place to sit and make even a comment about that. Only God will judge, and you are not God. So let's do this. Let's find another one. All right. So this one sounds pretty cool. And this is one, again, from that author from Hawaii. Thanks, Bomber. All right, let's see what's going on in Hawaii. A couple of days prior to Easter, I drove past an old Catholic church. It's a beautiful building with lots of charm, but the parking lot is shared by another denomination. The second church sits almost directly behind the first, and for some odd reason, I found myself staring to the right of both buildings. Slowing down my car, I found myself pulling into the parking lot. Driving past the entrance of the Catholic Church, I drove toward the set of steps leading up to the statue of Christ on the cross. My blood pressure appeared to be rising, and I was agitated. I didn't feel good to be near this area. The statue was bleached white by the tropical sun, and it hurt my eyes to look at it. The crown of thorns, the blood running down the frozen face, it made me angry, and I didn't know why. The more I stared up at the statue, the clearer it became. I wasn't really angry. The entities that came from behind the statue, they were the angry ones. One by one, they emerged. A young boy wearing pajama bottoms and no shirt, a middle-aged woman in robe and slippers. They sat on the steps and stared at the statue. An elderly man with a grumpy face, he sat nearby, and I knew he was mad that he had died. All of the ghosts were giving off different levels of emotion. They gave off emotional sadness, anger, awe, and confusion. The boy started to cry into his hands, and I felt such loneliness coming from him, and he faded away, and another took his place. A balding 40-something male was suddenly there, but he wasn't angry. He was just curious. He smiled at the statue and then dematerialized. Sitting myself down on the bottom step, the wave of anger left me. Disappointed, I can only assume the anger was structured around my being there, possibly towards me. I'll never know for sure. None of the entities attempted to talk to me. I counted 12 entities in that 15-minute span. The sun on my back was soothing, but there was nothing more to do here. Standing back up, I saw the last ghost. She was a tiny speck of a girl. Her stick straight hair stopped at her waist, and she wore a Sunday best, and the dress was cream colored and covered in tiny flowers. I guess she was most likely buried in this beautiful garment. She was 4 or 5 years old, and she wrapped her arms around the feet of the statue. Jesus, she said. Her eyes were huge with admiration. It was a simple statement, and it brought tears to my eyes. I think she was waiting for someone. She stared up into the face of the statue and smiled, and it was a soft smile. And she looked back at me with those big brown eyes, and her flawless face still had the freshness of living youth. How or when she had died didn't matter. What was she still doing here? I barely had time to return her smile before she evaporated into a misty mass. The mist moved behind the statue and dissipated. Walking behind the statue, I found myself staring down into a large cemetery. Headstones dotted the hillside and followed the valley below. It made sense to me now. These entities were being drawn to the statue here. It is a beautiful statue. As I was heading back to my car, I saw an elderly nun going over to the steps. She smiled at me, and I smiled back. I heard her clothing rustle as she passes me, and when I turned to watch her climb the steps, she was gone. She looked so real. I saw her rosary. I felt her warm smile. The sparkle in her eyes had been so clear. A chill went over me for a moment, and I pulled open the car door. When I climbed in and pulled the seatbelt across my body, I looked over to the statue one last time. The nun was sitting on the top step, and in her lap was the little girl I had seen. They seemed to be talking, and I smiled once again. The nun looked at me and pulled the child close to her body. It was a loving gesture, and I felt comforted. I think this child was going to be crossing soon, and it touched my heart. Why a nun, I wondered. A child this young doesn't understand religion or the complexity of the Catholic Church. Oh well, another question to ask when it's my turn to cross over. As I started up my car, I didn't worry myself with the paranormal activity. A nun or someone who had appeared as a nun was in charge here. Wow, that's very powerful. Oof. Cool story. I like that one. I don't know. I hope you guys liked it. I think it's pretty cool. Let's see if we can pull up one more. Oh, standing around the grave. That sounds good. This is the same person again. Sorry about that. This one is also from the same author, and again from Hawaii. It says, today I went to pay my respects. They were gathered around the covered grave. The aunties, the cousins, and the mothers and the fathers, or the mother and father, there's only one. Funerals in Hawaii attract dozens upon dozens of people, and there wasn't much as far as tears, but the atmosphere was solemn. I stood off to the side, being in the middle of the masses. No, can't do it. I watched his father holding up his mother. My heart went out to them. Another needless death of a teenager. He was driving fast and trying to impress his 15-year-old girlfriend. He missed a sharp turn, and the rest is history. He was 18 years old, and the passenger in his car, she sustained severe injuries. The young woman riding with him is in a critical care ward, and she will live with his decision with each glance in the mirror. I understand she went through the windshield at high speed. Of course, she wasn't wearing a seatbelt. I saw his ghost wandering through the crowd. He looked as surprised and devastated as anyone who is newly deceased. He seemed to ignore the other entities milling about. He was looking into the faces of those he left behind. It was obvious he knew what he had done. I could read it on his face, how sorry he was over his choice. Unfortunately, it's too late for him to be sorry. There were spectral beings following the guests around, and this is quite normal. All of us have loved ones who come to comfort us when we suffer. The guardian stood back and allowed each person to grieve. Grieving doesn't feel good, but it helps us to mature. Grieving helps us to appreciate our loved ones. Our guardian angels keep us close, but give us space to mourn. And mourning, we will all go through it at different times in our life someday. People will be grieving our passing. I watch the children running around. They play quietly as the adults mourn. The crowd is swelling with the living and the dead, and I move away as some of the apparitions have taken notice of me. This is neither the time nor the place to be comforted by the dead. My eyes focus on the family of the young man. I hear the whispers, and the sorrow is building. Having already approached the family, I see the young man following me with his eyes. I smile at the spectral teen, and he understands. I will be going back to his graveside tonight. I'll listen to him tonight, and I hope I will help him to move on. Very cool. Wow. That's pretty cool. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed those series of stories tonight. I did. I like them all. I like that. It's kind of neat to hear stories from a person who is sensitive. And I assume, if they're at all legitimate, then what we're hearing is very real experiences. And how awesome is that to hear, from the person themselves what they see. I'm still envious of that. I think that's a pretty amazing, profound thing. But anyway, I promised you an exclusive tonight, and I hope you guys enjoy this. Again, this is a song that I wrote. It's another kind of techno song, and I don't know, maybe some of you aren't into that, and that's cool. But it's going to be an asset, a piece of media to use for another version of the portal that'll be coming in the near future. At least that's where I think it's going to be used. I don't know. Maybe I'll use it somewhere else. And then along with a new 3D animation that I put together, I designed and created. So I hope you guys enjoy it. But I'm going to unveil it now, and hopefully you think it's as cool as I do. All right, we'll see. All right, I think I got this. Here it goes. Hang on to your seats. Here you go.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
All right, there you have it. Excuse me. That's funny. I don't know, Kathy, how you managed to pull that out. That's just that's just really cool, because that is actually pretty close to the last line of the song. Very cool, very cool. So thank you guys. I appreciate the kind words. I just wanted to throw that out to you and show you what I occupied my time with this last week. There's other things as well, but those are the only things I got complete. So, anyway, guys, thank you so much for the love. Thanks for your kind words, and thanks for tolerating it if you didn't enjoy it. But I think that's awesome. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it, and that's really gonna wrap it up now. I hope you guys have a wonderful evening. I'll be back again tomorrow with the Night Terrors again. Now, Wednesday night, we got a special Wednesday night show. We're going to be joined by Mr. Stephen Majors, who is the creator of Extreme Expeditions Northwest LLC. And he's also the gentleman who is spearheading the whole conference that we're going to be doing. It's a town hall get-together, Bigfoot Town Hall in Medellin Falls, Washington on the 7th. But joining him is going to be Mr. Adam Davies. He will also be here on the show on Wednesday. And Adam is an incredibly well-known and renowned Bigfoot researcher. Really nice guy. I met him last year. And he's going to be joining Stephen, as well as maybe Dr. Robert Alley. If he can join us as well, that'll be cool. But Wednesday is going to be just an amazing event. So definitely tune in Wednesday night. I'll be back with the Night Terrors tomorrow. So love you guys. Have a great night, and sweet dreams.